Homo sapiens survived because we couldn't stop storing. That same wiring is making you miserable. Right now, somewhere in your home, there is something you don't need. A box of things you haven't touched in years. A bank account you refuse to spend from even when you could. A closet full of objects you bought just in case. You tell yourself it's practical. You tell yourself it's smart. But the truth is stranger than practicality. The truth is older than money. What you're doing right now, the hoarding, the saving, the relentless accumulation of more, isn't a modern financial strategy. It's a survival reflex that is approximately 2 million years old. And it is running your life without your permission. Your brain does not live in the present. It lives in a world that no longer exists. A world where winter could kill you, where a single bad season meant your children starved, where every calorie you stored was one fewer night you spent dying. That world is gone, but the neural wiring it burned into you is not. And that wiring doesn't know the difference between a pantry and a portfolio, between a cave and a condominium, between dried meat and a diversified savings account. To your ancient brain, all of it means the same thing: safety. Let's go back, not decades, not centuries, hundreds of thousands of years back, to the Pleistocene epoch, the geological age that shaped almost everything your brain believes about survival, scarcity, and enough. For roughly 2.5 million years, your ancestors lived in small nomadic bands across the African savanna and beyond. There were no grocery stores, no refrigerators, no supply chains, no harvest guarantees. What existed was wildly unpredictable weather, seasonal food scarcity, drought, failed hunts, and the constant biological reality that if you didn't eat enough calories today, you might not have the energy to survive tomorrow. This is the world that built you. And in that world, hoarding was not a psychological flaw. It was intelligence. Storing food, caching meat near a kill site, burying roots, drying berries, was the difference between a group that survived winter and a group that didn't. The individuals who felt a powerful compulsion to accumulate more than they immediately needed passed that compulsion into the next generation. The ones who felt satisfied with just enough, who consumed freely and stored nothing, they were far more likely to perish in the lean months. Evolution did not reward contentment. It rewarded accumulation. It did not select for knowing when enough was enough. It selected for never believing enough was enough. James Neal, a pioneering geneticist, proposed something close to this in 1962. He called it the thrifty genotype hypothesis. Neal argued that certain metabolic traits, the ones that cause humans to efficiently store fat and energy, evolved specifically because they improved survival during feast and famine cycles. His original work focused on metabolism and diabetes risk, but the behavioral parallel is impossible to ignore. The same evolutionary pressure that rewired your body to store fat also rewired your mind to store resources, to hoard, to accumulate beyond current need. Because in the ancestral environment, there was no such thing as too much. There was only not enough yet. Think about what that actually means in practice. Your ancestors didn't have access to nutritional science. They couldn't calculate exact caloric needs. What they had was a behavioral heuristic, a rule of thumb burned deep into their nervous systems that said, when you find something valuable, take more than you need right now. When resources are available, accumulate. When the chance appears, don't stop at satisfied. Because satisfied today could mean desperate tomorrow. Paul Buisak, a scholar of evolutionary semiotics and behavioral communication, has explored how this accumulation logic extends far beyond food. Across human cultures and across animal species, the hoarding impulse appears wherever survival is uncertain. Buisak's work on behavioral signals in resource-scarce environments points to a core truth. Accumulation is not learned behavior. It is the default mode of any nervous system shaped by unpredictable scarcity. You don't teach a squirrel to cache acorns. You don't explain winter to a bird building a food store. The behavior is wired in because the environments that created them demanded it. And the environment that created you, the Pleistocene, was about as unpredictable as an environment can be. Your ancestors didn't know if next month would bring rain or drought. They didn't know if the hunting grounds would be rich or empty. They had no algorithm, no weather forecast, no macroeconomic model. They had their gut, and their gut said, store more, always store more, because the seasons you can't see coming are the ones that kill you. Here is where it gets genuinely strange, because that gut, that ancient Pleistocene calibrated gut, is still running inside you, right now. The same neural architecture that told your ancestor to cache extra dried meat is the one telling you to keep money in an account you never touch. The same survival logic that drove prehistoric humans to accumulate more than they could eat is driving modern humans to accumulate more than they could ever spend. The biological signal is identical, only the currency has changed. Neuroscientists studying reward circuitry have confirmed what evolutionary psychology long suspected. Hoarding behaviors activate the brain's dopamine system, the same chemical reward pathway associated with food, sex, and survival, in ways that are disproportionate to actual need. You get a neurochemical reward for accumulating. The pleasure is in the gaining, not in the having. And crucially, the system doesn't automatically shut off once enough has been stored, because in the ancestral environment, enough was never guaranteed to last. So the reward keeps signaling. Keep going. More. Always more. This is why billionaires don't stop. Not because they are uniquely greedy, but because their brains, just like yours, are running a Pleistocene operating system in a modern economy. The system was never designed with an off switch for accumulation. It was designed to accumulate until the environment forced a stop. And the modern financial environment almost never forces a stop. There are always more assets to acquire, more zeros to add, more to store. The signal keeps firing because the ancient brain never received the winter that was supposed to drain the surplus. Anthropologist David Graeber, in his sweeping work on debt and economic history, noted something deeply revealing about early human societies. Even in cultures where surplus resources were available, the act of hoarding for purely personal use was often treated with social suspicion. In many forager communities, hoarding beyond the group's needs wasn't just unusual, it was a violation of social trust. Early humans survived not because any one individual out-hoarded everyone else, but because they shared resources and built mutual survival networks. The compulsion to accumulate existed alongside a social pressure to redistribute. These two forces, hoard privately, share publicly, created a kind of evolutionary tension that shaped how human societies structured wealth for thousands of years. That tension still lives in you. You feel it every time someone you know buys something expensive, and a part of you quietly feels that they are wasting resources. You feel it when you receive a bonus, and your first instinct is not to spend it, but to save it, protect it, hide it somewhere safe. You feel it when markets drop and your stomach tightens the way a Pleistocene human's stomach tightened when the hunting grounds went quiet. These are not irrational responses. They are ancient responses, perfectly rational for an environment that no longer exists, firing inside a brain that doesn't know the calendar has changed. The psychologist Lawrence Steinberg, whose research on risk, reward, and decision-making has profoundly influenced our understanding of the developing brain, has pointed to something critical about how human beings relate to resource uncertainty. The brain does not evaluate financial security on an absolute scale. It evaluates it on a relative scale, compared to what could be lost, compared to what others have, compared to what past deprivation has taught it to fear. This is why a person with $10 million can experience the same scarcity anxiety as a person with 10,000. The absolute number is not what the brain is reading. The brain is reading the gap between what it has and what it believes it needs to be safe. And what it believes it needs to be safe was calibrated during an era when nothing was guaranteed. That calibration has a name in behavioral economics: the reference point. Your brain doesn't evaluate wealth in absolute terms. It evaluates wealth relative to a reference point that was set not by your bank balance, but by your evolutionary history. And that reference point was set by ancestors who watched droughts turn abundance into nothing in a single season, who saw their stores depleted by a long winter, who understood viscerally that what you have today tells you almost nothing about what you'll have when you need it most. So the reference point never moves to satisfied. It keeps moving forward, always just ahead of wherever you currently are. This is why people who accumulate wealth frequently describe a strange sensation. They expected that reaching a financial milestone would feel like arrival. Instead, it feels like a temporary platform, a brief pause before the urge to accumulate more reasserts itself. The horizon doesn't move closer, it moves with you. Because the drive to store more was never designed to terminate at a particular number. It was designed to keep going for as long as there was something left to store. There's a clinical dimension to this as well. Hoarding disorder, a recognized psychological condition involving the excessive accumulation of objects and extreme distress at the idea of discarding them, affects a significant percentage of the global population. While extreme cases involve disruption to daily functioning, researchers studying the condition have identified a spectrum of hoarding behavior that runs through the general population. Most of us are somewhere on that spectrum. The line between prudent saving and compulsive accumulation is not as sharp as we like to believe, and the evolutionary explanation helps clarify why. There is no clean line because the behavior itself was never designed to have one. Accumulation was supposed to continue until external conditions forced depletion. Without that environmental forcing function, the behavior can run unchecked. Your ancient brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. But it was designed for a world where famines came without warning and winters lasted longer than expected, not for a world with index funds and inflation and automated bill payments and grocery delivery and a financial system so complex that no single human can fully comprehend it. The mismatch between the ancient software and the modern environment is not a flaw you can simply decide your way out of. It is a structural tension between two entirely different survival contexts. What does this mean for how you actually live? It means that the anxiety you feel when you spend money you technically have is not weakness, it's calibration. Your brain is doing exactly what evolution trained it to do, treating every expenditure as a potential threat to future survival. It means that the compulsion to accumulate past any reasonable point is not greed in the moral sense, it's instinct in the biological sense. It means that contentment, genuine, lasting satisfaction with what you have, is not the default state your brain is trying to reach. It is a state that runs directly against one of the oldest and most powerful drives in your nervous system. Ancient peoples who felt genuinely content with what they had stored often didn't survive the lean months. Their contentment was selected against. Your brain is the descendant of the restless ones, the never satisfied ones, the always storing, always accumulating ancestors who could never quite convince themselves that they had enough. And here's the strangest part. Knowing this doesn't automatically change the feeling. You can understand the evolutionary logic completely and still feel the tightening in your chest when your savings drop. You can know that a market correction is temporary and still feel the ancient signal telling you to protect, to store, to pull everything somewhere safe. Knowledge doesn't overwrite millions of years of behavioral wiring. What it does is give you a slightly wider gap between the signal and the response. A moment, small but real, where you can ask, is this fear real or is it ancient? Is this danger actually here or is my brain still scanning for a winter that already passed? The next time you feel the compulsion to accumulate, to save beyond reason, to hold on when you could let go, to feel that no amount ever feels like enough, remember where that feeling comes from. It comes from the long, cold seasons your ancestors survived. It comes from the evolutionary logic that kept your lineage alive through everything the Pleistocene threw at it. It comes from every human who stored just a little more, just in case, and because of that small act of ancient anxiety, gave you the life you are living right now. Homo sapiens survived because we couldn't stop storing, and now you know exactly why that same wiring is making you miserable.